When it comes to the NFL draft, finding a franchise quarterback is always one of the most pressing issues for any general manager. But how do the first round quarterbacks help your fantasy football team? Let's talk with SI fantasy analyst Michael Fabiano, who did a ton of research on maybe the last decade or so of quarterbacks getting picked in the first round. Fabs, let's start with some of your findings from this scientific research that you did.
So I went back to 2012. 28 quarterbacks have been picked in the first round of the NFL draft. And we'll start off from 2012 to 2016. Prepare yourself because it's not good at all. We're talking about Brandon Weeden and EJ Manuel, Johnny Manziel, Teddy Bridgewater, Marcus Mariota, Paxton Lynch. I mean, these guys really didn't do much. I mean, Mariota had maybe one good season in his NFL career from a fantasy perspective. Bridgewater's best season came last year in Carolina. He was the QB 18. Some others, Ryan Tannehill, he had one good year in Miami. Now he's become more of a fantasy star in Tennessee. So we still haven't closed the book on him. He's been playing much better. But Robert Griffin III, for example, he was great as a rookie, had the injury, career went downhill from there. Blake Bortles, somehow he had 2 top 10 finishes among quarterbacks, and that's garbage time for you because he wasn't very good. Jameis Winston's had 1 top 10 finish. Ultimately, he hasn't put up great fantasy totals. Carson Wentz was great in 2017. A couple years later, had a top 10 finish. But ultimately, last year, he had regression, and now he's been traded to the Colts. Same kind of thing with Jared Goff, right? He had that one huge season where he led the Rams to the Super Bowl. He was a top 10 fantasy quarterback. After that, regression began, and now he's traded to Detroit, which is like outer Mongolia from a fantasy football perspective. So right now, the only guy that I would call an elite quarterback to come out and be drafted in the first round in the NFL is Andrew Luck. In that time frame, he was a star. Unfortunately, he retired too soon. But from 2012 to 2016, Andrew Luck is the only first-round quarterback drafted by an NFL team that became a true fantasy superstar. The good news, Bill, is that things have gotten better.
All right, so the first half of the decade for the quarterbacks, not great, but we start cooking with some fire, or at least some gas on these quarterbacks passes with guys like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. All of a sudden, first round quarterbacks, they're starting to make a name for themselves early on in their career.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we've had some stinkers, okay? Mitchell Trubisky, sorry, Bears fans, massive stinker. That's going to go down in history as one of the worst moves ever. The fact that Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson were drafted after Mitchell Trubisky is one of the biggest gaffes in NFL draft history. Again, Bears fans, sorry. Baker Mayfield, he's been okay. He's not an elite fantasy quarterback. Sam Darnold hasn't been great. Josh Rosen, not good. Daniel Jones, the jury's still out. Dwayne Haskins is now a backup in Pittsburgh. And Jordan Love, don't know why the heck the Packers did that, but all these guys, first-round quarterbacks, haven't really met expectations, and some of them won't meet expectations because they're already out of the league. But we mentioned Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson. Josh Allen went from QB 21 as a rookie to QB 6 to QB 1. That is a nice, swift move up your fantasy football rankings. What about Lamar Jackson? Only played 7 games as a starter as a rookie, and then came in and had a monster season in 2019. Last year was the QB 10. What about Kyler Murray 2 years ago? Number 1 overall pick in the draft. Ends up being the QB 8. This past season, emerges as the QB 3. So we've seen a good direction from a fantasy perspective with these first-round quarterbacks. And notice, I didn't even mention Justin Herbert, or I guess I just did, but I'm not going to call Herbert elite after one great year. But he had a great year, folks. I mean, it was the second best season in fantasy football history among rookie quarterbacks, just behind Cam Newton. And then let's not forget Joe Burrow. He was on pace to potentially be a top 12 fantasy quarterback as a rookie. So we're seeing a trend of these first-round quarterbacks not only making a bigger impact in their careers, but more of an immediate impact. We didn't see that with Mahomes because, of course, it was Alex Smith in Kansas City. But in situations where rookie quarterbacks have been put in a place of a prominent role in their offenses, it hasn't all been bad. In fact, we've seen some real flashes of potential from these players. Now, this is good news for the likes of Trevor Lawrence, who's going to go number 1, Zach Wilson, who's going to go number 2. Although Jets fans, you know, the quarterbacks you've drafted in the past have not done well. I'm just saying, all right? I'm not trying to break your spirit. I'm just saying, Mark Sanchez, enjoy that. Sam Darnold, yeah, we'll not keep going there. But Trey Lance, Mac Jones, these guys could potentially make an impact. Maybe not as rookies. Some of them will. I think Lawrence could be a top 12 quarterback. But when you look at what's going on with this trend, it's no longer, well, I'm just going to poo-poo rookie quarterbacks because unless they can run it with the football, they're not going to get the job done. That hasn't been the case. And Bill, I feel like it's a combination of college games have really become more pro style over the last decade plus, and NFL rules are allowing quarterbacks and their offensive skill position players to put up a lot more yards, which means a lot more touchdowns and a lot more fantasy points.
And we'll get to a more NFL draft analysis and how it's going to impact your fantasy team when the NFL draft kicks off. I believe the first day is at the end of April 29th or April 30th. It commences for the first round. And it will be live in Cleveland this year. So as NFL draft fans, we're looking forward to that. But we'll have the full breakdown on how it involves your fantasy football team with more excellent Fabiano insight. You can check it all out by going to si.com/fantasy.